Hi, my name is Fallout, and I'm about to tell you something you already know. The D2 community as a whole hates the aerial effectiveness system. I know. And today, because there's not a whole lot else going on, new content in one day, baby! I just thought I might take some time to share my thoughts on maybe the most widely disliked sandbox mechanic currently in D2. I almost didn't make today's video because I saw a community colleague and content maker extraordinaire ASTRO had already made a video with a really similar vibe. But even though we're essentially beating a dead horse at this point, he mentioned wanting to hear my thoughts on the whole thing, so it. Here goes. So, as a content creator, I've tried to really get myself into the mentality of not overreacting right away when new things happen or are announced in D2. Kind of difficult to do, no joke, because extreme emotional gut reactions really do drive viewership in my line of work. For example, when the linear fusion rifle nerf happened, I saw a ton of people on Twitter saying it was actually a buff. Everyone panicked, the sky is falling, yada yada yada. And by the way, this is not me throwing shade at those people. They just care about the game and want to point out potentially bad shit, albeit maybe too eagerly, because their end result is the same as mine. They just want the game to be the best it can be. Just wanted to clarify that. But yeah, I try to get my hands in the dough of whatever it is before really weighing in. And with that in mind, now that the AE system has been in D2 for a fair amount of time, I can say with pretty strong conviction that I do not like the AE system in D2. Bold statements only on this channel, people. However, I do potentially fear what it might look like if we completely threw the entire system out. Not that I'm completely against that idea. It could be amazing, or it could be a nightmare, but more on that later. Before we continue, how about a crude 1-minute explanation of the AE system for people who might not know what the hell I'm talking about? Maggie, could you put 60 seconds on the clock? Thank you. Aerial effectiveness is an in-game number applied to your Guardian based on your overall loadout. Every weapon in the game, as well as pieces of exotic armor, each have individual AE values which come together to form your overall number. Your AE number determines how accurate you are when shooting your gun in the air. However, the numbers for primary and special weapons are different, which people often forget. TLDR, hitting an AE value of 60 means your weapon's accuracy will be the exact same as if you were standing on the ground, but for primary weapons only. Bungie didn't want to make it easy for special weapons. You basically need a max AE value of 100 in order to have the same level of in-air accuracy that you'd have on the ground with a special weapon. And time. Remember those numbers, by the way. We'll come back to them later. But yeah, 60 AE for a primary weapon, 100 AE for a special weapon equals ground level accuracy. The key word there being accuracy, by the way. I'm not using that word in the general way that normal people do. I'm using the word accuracy under the umbrella of Destiny 2 cone lingo. Remember, on your HUD in-game, your weapon usually has two cones that make up your crosshair, one being the aim assist cone and the other being the accuracy cone. Here's where things get really annoying. Even if you manage to hit 100 AE when using a special weapon, meaning you now have ground level accuracy when in the air, there's still a penalty to your weapon performance. Your accuracy cone may be at on the ground level, but your aim assist cone isn't. Your aim assist cone when in the air will always be punished, no matter how hard you build into the system. That is the catch, and that's why to a lot of people, shooting your gun in the air feels like total cheeks. Even at 100 AE, yeah, your accuracy cone won't be punished, but your aim assist cone sure will. Quick reminder on that note, by the way, aim assist has two functions which affect both mouse and keyboard players and controller players together. To this day, I still see people on Twitter occasionally saying that there is, quote, no aim assist on mouse and keyboard, which is definitely not true. There's bullet magnetism on both. But yeah, when your aim assist cone is harmed when you jump no matter what, it makes aerial shot landing fairly difficult to do by default. And that isn't a secret, by the way. It's intended design by Bungie. And I'm not defending it in any way, I'm just saying. Bungie has built the aerial combat that way in D2 because they feel that making aerial gunplay too effective would be oppressive to the majority of the player base. That's a quote from Bungie from the June 9th TWAB, by the way. So, to recap, 60 AE on a primary weapon equals grounded level accuracy, and 100 AE on a special weapon equals grounded level accuracy, but in either case, no matter how high you make your AE number, your weapon's aim assist cone will never be as efficient as it is when you're on the ground. And now that we're on the same page, how does the community feel about the AE system? Overall, I would say not good. I ran a poll on Twitter that got around 20,000 votes, and yeah, people don't like it. In fact, I'd probably say that F the AE system is probably the #1 biggest complaint I hear from the PvP crowd these days. And after all this time, yeah, I'm in agreement. I get frustrated by the AE system for a few reasons, which I will now share with you. Reason #1, building into it is annoyingly secretive. Yeah, Bungie has mentioned in the TWAB how the system works, but not really in the game. Not every player out there has time to read the TWAB or even knows what the the TWAB even is. If we're gonna have this elaborate and important system be in the game, the number should be right there in the character menu along with discipline, intellect, etc., staring me in the face. I shouldn't have to get out a calculator to know what my current AE number is. And why is it not mentioned on key perks or armor in the game? Heat Rises is a very vital perk for improving your AE on a Warlock, yet whenever I hover over it in the menu, no number anywhere. The Astrocyte Verse exotic also has a very respectable AE value of 30, and yet that is mentioned nowhere on the armor. Why? Reason #2, Jesus, the number thresholds are so high. As I mentioned earlier, 60 AE equals ground level accuracy for a primary weapon and 100 AE for a special. 100 AE, that number is higher than pure chill on a Sunday, and if you want to even dream of getting to 100, you have to make a ridiculously restricting loadout in terms of both subclass weapon and exotic armor. My buddy Cammy has made a build where he has a solar warlock wearing the Astrocyte Verse helm, which doesn't make any sense because Astrocyte is made for void warlocks, not solar. But he wears it anyway because it's one of the few easy ways for a warlock to get to 100 AE. Now, there may be a little bit of a good news, bad news type situation going on here. In last week's TWAB, Bungie mentioned that in the future they wanted to do a rebalance of AE, making it much easier for primary weapons. That is definitely a great start. Again, though, apparently no word on special weapon changes at all. I'd really love to have the option of multiple classes being able to have an easier time building into high AE values, not just certain classes like Solar Warlock. The counterpoint to that complaint of mine might be, but what about class identity? Remember, Fallout, each class has a certain identity tied to it, and the aerial combat identity is tied to a solar warlock. I don't know why that voice got more annoying over time, but anyway, I mean, yeah, I guess. I feel like class identity is starting to feel more and more restricting these days. I definitely get things like going camo and dropping big overshields being class identity, but being able to shoot accurately when you jump? I feel like everyone should be able to do that as a baseline. And yeah, I want solar warlocks to be special, but they already are. They can go way high in the air and stay there for a very long time. I don't think they need to own the entire identity of shooting even 2 feet off the ground. Reason #3, the fact that even if you build into the AE system as mentioned earlier, your aim assist cone will still be affected no matter what, resulting in mid-air gunplay potentially feeling bad. And reason #3 is the one I want to harp on for just a minute. Again, from what we've seen Bungie mention in the past, the core fear of them throwing the entire AE system into the garbage seems to stem from the idea that if they made aerial gunplay feel 100% identical to boots on the ground level gunplay is, it would probably end up being oppressive to parts of the player base. Even though he's no longer with Bungie, former game dev Josh Hambone has echoed this idea more than one time. Making aerial gunplay easier would change the overall skill set of the game, which could severely affect the overall audience of the game. TLDR, god level players would be flying around at breakneck speed with stompies bouncing their head off the ceiling and cramming all the non-god players into a locker. At least that was my interpretation. And here's the thing, I do think there's a good chance that would happen if you threw the whole AE system out. I mean, hell, if we're being honest, if you had the same level of accuracy in the air as you did on the ground and your aim assist cone was left untouched, I would probably turn into a hunter main immediately, and yeah, those stompies would be glued to my feet forever. But the point does stand that the current system does not feel good, and people are begging for something to change, and I don't really blame them. It just sucks to miss your shots in the air when it very much looks like you're aiming right at the other guy. I know building into the system is supposed to be the remedy, but building into the system is both very restrictive and annoyingly secretive and just a whole goddamn mess. And the funny thing is, if Bungie threw the entire AE system into the garbage overnight, it would kind of be a situation of, hey, you made your bed, now you gotta lie in it. Either perfect in-air accuracy all the time would be the best thing that ever happened to PvP, or the meta would turn into a smoking ball of shit with all aerial abuse all the time. But again, the funny thing is, if that did happen, Bungie could just sit back and say, hey, this is what y'all wanted, right? I'm not saying I want that to happen, but it definitely would be funny in a weird sort of way. It's looking right now like they're only going to try to modify it to the point where the community can at least tolerate it. I think they need to lower the requirements a good amount, and not only just for primaries, but for special weapons too. And don't restrict the high AE builds to only very certain classes or loadouts. Nobody likes that. And maybe consider tweaking how much of a beating our aim assist cone takes when we're in the air. I mean, no matter how that goes over, think about it. It could be a win-win for Bungie. If everyone digs the changes to the combat system, yay, win. If people hate it and it's just way too easy to abuse the game with aerial combat and people complain, Bungie gets to have their lol told you so moment and then make further changes as needed. Win-win. Final thing I want to touch on, the constant worry Bungie has about potentially making aerial combat too good and how it might wind up with top talent PvP players shoving everybody into a locker from the air. I think that these days it seems that Bungie's kinda leaning more and more into skill-based matchmaking in even the more casual PvP game types in D2. And that's a whole other conversation. But doesn't that in itself kind of give the less dedicated PvP players the protection they already need? If there's skill-based matchmaking in Control and a bunch of other places, then in theory, even if Bungie did throw out the entire AE combat system, wouldn't it just be the top players beating on each other in their own bracket? I'm sure the conversation is probably more complex than that, but just a thought anyway, even though it might devolve into complete chaos. F it. Tell me down in the comment section exactly how you feel about the AE system. Good, needs work, or get it the hell out. Let me know. And FYI, I will be live on the Twitch channel tomorrow for Season 19. Hope to see you all there. Thanks for watching. See you on stream.